Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. Please enjoy some of my watercolor art while we talk about Trump, his victory, and let's start with some Sam Harris, shall we? In his Making Sense podcast number 391, at minute number 30 and 24 seconds, we start.
Honestly, I think it simply wasn't safe for Harris to win a free and fair election at that point. That is a totally crazy thought to have had on election night in America in the year 2024. Where do we send the bill for the damage that has been done to our country? Half of our society just elected a man to the presidency who they know would not have accepted the results of the election had he lost. Vice President Harris conceded the next day, as everyone knew she would. There is probably no one who supported Trump who thinks that he would have done what they fully expected Harris to do, which is to protect the most important norm of our democracy, the very thing that makes it possible, the peaceful transfer of power.
That assumes, Mr. Sam Harris, that the election had fair voting. You're assuming that it would have been a fair vote. And we were expecting another 2020. We were expecting the possibility that there would be millions of bizarre votes come out of the blue, so to speak, and that was going to illegitimize the result in our eyes. And it was basically the end of the world if they're going to steal 2 elections in a row, and we know what's coming. We know what they're going to do to the country. We see what they do to California and New York and all the Chicago, every place they own, Seattle. So we know what's coming. And if they're going to force themselves on us by stealing the elections, yeah, it's time for violence probably. Luckily, we've possibly been able to avert violence coming from the right because things we'll talk about.
And the astonishing thing is that Trump supporters are totally okay with this asymmetry. They expected Harris to concede and would have demanded that she do it, and yet they know Trump wouldn't have conceded if he lost. Understanding.
I didn't expect Harris to concede. I expected her to be installed. The FBI put their fingers heavily on the scale last time to make sure Trump didn't get in. And I figured they were just going to do it again. And eventually we're just going to be in a dictatorship run by whoever is running the FBI and CIA. That's where we were going. And we were getting to the point where people who are awake to this have basically a small list. If a revolution starts, there's a pretty short list of who's been monkeying with things. And the FBI and the CIA are at the top of that list, and the Secret Service that tried to kill Trump. We all saw that. The Secret Service tried to kill Trump. All right, now we've got about 30 seconds left of Sam we want to listen to.
All the risk this would have posed to our social fabric, and they are fine with that. That is already the ruination of our politics. That is what the path to fascism looks like. We are already on it. There is nothing hypothetical about this. Bad things have already happened. And this is true whatever happens over the next 4 years.
All right, we're done with Sam Harris. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Bad things have already happened just by him being elected. The derangement is real. They actually believe the things that they tell us. They are frickin' delusional. They think that Trump is a racist, he's a misogynist, he's an anti-Semite, he's whatever, all the lies and garbage they tell about him. These people believe it. And they think that the voters elected this guy, who in their head is all these things. The voters did not elect that guy. The voters elected a billionaire who doesn't have to take shit from the political class, He doesn't like political correctness, this billionaire, and he's willing to be cheeky. That's who we elected. It's not Hitler. It's not the end of the world. He's a cheeky billionaire. Is he bright? He's bright enough to make a lot of money. I would put his IQ somewhere around 110 or something like that. He's brighter than the average person, for sure. Is he a genius? No, he's absolutely not a genius. But, neither is Joe Rogan or Brett or Eric Weinstein. Well, maybe Eric Weinstein. So that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen, with Sam Harris. He expects everything from here on out to be broken because his worldview is totally deranged. He has bought the propaganda and lies from his side. Now let's just imagine for a moment that it really were true that Trump is literally Hitler. What should people be doing now that he's been elected? Time is short. We've got to make the most of it. It's time for, whatever the left thinks they should do. Armed rebellion or taking over the military or commandeering police stations or who knows what they think they should do to make sure that Hitler doesn't take over and own everything. Because he's literally Hitler. Now, they don't believe that. Kamala Harris wouldn't have come out, and she came out kind of late. She should have conceded that night if she valued democracy, but she doesn't value democracy, and she doesn't value the peaceful transfer of power. She wanted there to be some sort of riots that night before they conceded. She wanted the FBI to come out of the background and do something. I think the FBI knew they were playing with fire if they kept fucking with the elections. And they might even be in deep trouble. If I was king for a day, I would find out all of the people involved in stealing the election in 2020, and I would hang them publicly. Was 2020 stolen? If you still don't think it's stolen, look at the fact that there's 14 million or 18 million missing votes this time. Really? 18 million or 14 or 15, somewhere around that number of people didn't vote this time. They voted last time. They didn't vote the time before or the time before that. Is just in 2020 they voted. Now, what brought these people to the polls in 2020? What was so polarizing compared to 2024 when we have literally Hitler running against Commie Kamala and the transgender brigade? What could be more polarizing than Hitler versus commies and trannies coming for you? Right? That was a motivating election. But no, 15 million votes fewer than in 2020. Also, if that's true, if 2020 really did have that many voters, then the seismic shift, the move away from the left and towards Trump is so amazing. I do not have that much faith in the United States of America. I believe 10 or 20 million people have moved and changed their mind in total, and that's shown up in 5 million votes and 10 million votes maybe. But to believe that 15 or 18 million people were so apathetic about this. They voted for the Democrats before, but now that literally Hitler is running and might win, they're not going to vote. That's bullshit. The seismic shift in the demographic thing and more blacks and more women and more Mexicans, sure, those people voted for Trump in larger numbers than ever before. They moved to Trump's side. But it's not as big as it looks. The funny thing is, this is karma biting the Democrats in the ass. They stole the election with millions upon millions of fake votes. And now that they weren't able to steal the next election for whatever reason, I think because the FBI knew that too much heat was on them and they couldn't keep doing it. So they just let this one happen. And here now the left is the ones who believe that they actually got those votes are scratching their heads. Their wind has come out of their sails. They're flabbergasted. And this is karma. If you believed the election fraud and you didn't think that there was election fraud, then now you have a very serious reckoning to do with all of the millions upon millions upon millions of people who have just decided not to vote for your party against literally Hitler. But it's not as bad as you think. There's actually only probably 5 or 10 million Americans that have changed sides. And 2020 was a fluke because of the gargantuan voter fraud. Why wasn't the voter fraud investigated? It was taken to court. All that was... Yeah, okay. The FBI was behind it. They were behind the voter fraud on the machines, and they were behind the ballots. And anything that went to any judge, the FBI went to them and whispered in the air and said, don't you dare screw with our thing, because we are keeping literally Hitler out of office by doing this, so don't mess with it. They probably said the same thing to the Supreme Court. That's probably why the Supreme Court wouldn't hear the election interference, because the FBI probably said, this is not the time. And the Supreme Court probably didn't have much, they killed Scalia. The deep state killed Scalia. So the Supreme Court knows that if they step out of line, they'll be shot in their home. Now, given all of that, and Sam Harris thinks that now we've elected a cheeky billionaire, that we are on the road to fascism, because we narrowly averted a fascist takeover of communist leftists. We are on the road to fascism. It's fucking delusional. But I'm so glad Trump's in, and visit my Patreon and throw me some money.